Rambam. We are in the book of purity. We are learning the Shar Avos, the other areas of impurity that a person contacts spiritual impurity and that they need to become purified from, whether it's in these, it means going to a mikveh, right? And it's in order that you can deal in a state of purity, which is necessary when you go to the Holy Temple and bringing offerings during holidays and the like. But to eat breakfast, you don't need to eat in a state of purity. It's not necessary, only for certain holy activity, as we said. Okay, so chapter 6, the impurity of false deities is of rabbinic origin, meaning something that was used to uh, in a like TM, transcendental meditation. They have like some kind of Buddha, and that you do some incense ceremony and so on and so forth. That's idolatry. So if you come in contact with it, you become spiritually impure. We're not talking about the idolatry of it, serving it. That's a different law. That's the laws of idolatry, right? We're talking now the fact of an idol, right? That is used, right? That is symbolizing a deity or whatever it is, a Buddha or, that, right? That physical object, you touch it, or we'll see the laws over here, makes you impure, okay? That's the point over here, right? Is that clear?
Rabbi?
Yeah?
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't see Rambam on the screen.
I guess I didn't share it. Let's just I didn't share it. There it is. Thank you for keeping me on my toes. Okay, so impurity of false deities is of rabbinic origin. So it's not a biblical law, it's rabbinic. But there's an allusion to it in the Torah, as the verse says, remove the foreign gods from in your midst, purify yourselves and change your garments, which is it's in the book of Genesis with the story with Lavan when he came looking for his idolatry, and Rachel was sitting on it to hide it from him, the foreign gods, right, that he was using for idolatry, and actually no, that's not what it. No, that was a wrong reference. Hold on, I'm trying to remind myself. Hold on, wrong reference, or maybe no. Actually, it is the right one. Yes, correct. So yeah, Yaakov told to his household that they were leaving from Laban, right? Remove from yourself, any of the idolatry. Not that they served the idol, but they may have had, remove it, and you have to purify yourself and cleanse yourself. So it's not a command because it's a narrative, but from there's a hint to it, right? An allusion to it, and that's where the rabbinic law is sort of pending on. Okay, there are four primary categories of ritual impurity associated with the worship of false deities themselves, their accessories, something offered to it, right? It's not the deity itself, but it's offered, the incense, right, that would be offered to it, the wine libation offered to it. The impurity associated with all of these is rabbinic origin. Now, again, what we're talking about is, here, this is a false god for many people, right? You serve this, the incense that you use to serve this, the wine libation that's for this, right? Or anything that's offered to it, you touch it, Oh, we'll see right. You come in contact with it, you become impure. Not because you served it. That's a separate law. That's idolatry itself. This is impurity that because you've come in contact with idolatry, not because you served it. You don't want to say, you know that it's idolatry, but you came in contact with it. That itself makes you impure. Okay? That's the idea. So the false deity imparts impurity to persons. So if I touch it, I become impure. If an implement touches it, my spoon touches this, it too becomes impure, right? It's a vessel, implement. An earthenware container, when it touches the inner place, so earthenware vessel, a cup that's made from earthenware, only on the inside. So if it went in the airspace, don't have to touch it. When in the airspace, it becomes impure, right? This is like the carcass of a crawling animal, which we learned yesterday, does not impart impurity when carried. So when you carry this on something else, right here, I'm carrying this, I'm not touching it, right? I'm carrying it. It does not impart impurity. Okay. If you carry a corpse, it does, right? But not in this law here. Okay. And you shall certainly regard it as disgusting. Okay, that's about the creepy crawlers. Okay, the minimum measure that imparts impurity is an olive-sized portion. Something like this size. Weight would be 3 ounces. This is more than 3 ounces, but okay. It should not be more stringent than the portion of a corpse. If an image is less than an olive size, it is pure. Right. So a corpse, a human corpse, which is a biblical law and the most stringent of all of them, there you have a minimum uh, of an olive size, which again, 3 ounces or I'm gonna get the door. Someone's there. Thank you. Someone to come for Lulav and Esther. Tell them to come into the library here. Okay, thank you. Number 3, if one cut off a limb from it, let's say like a cow in India, right? They're worshipped. Even if it's large as a steering rod of a plow, it is pure. The rationale is that the false deity does not impart impurity when separated into limbs, only when the entire image is intact, as referred to. Cast your idols away like someone impure, just as the limbs of the impure person do not impart impurity. So too, the limbs of the false deity do not impart impurity. Hold on 1 second. Hello. Get you. This is this is a little this is the backbone. Okay. These should be put in tomorrow. They're in plastic, so they'll stay fresh. Okay, it's a 3 go here, and the 2 go here. 3 on the right, 2 on the right, strong. So 3. Okay. Okay. What do you want that? Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry. Well. Did you go out the right door? Okay. Okay. The middle door is locked. Okay. Thank you. Its impurity was established according to the leniencies applying to the primary categories of impurity. Since its impurity is of forbidden origin, it is considered as the carcass of a crawling animal, in that it does not impart impurity when carried like a corpse, in that olive size portion is required. And like Anita, that the limb of it does not impart impurity. So explaining over here, biblical law were more stringent, right? Because it's biblical, it's God's direct law. Rabbinic law is more lenient. That's the right. We've learned that many times, right? So in the makeup of the law, right? Not in our commitment to the law, in the makeup of the law, it's more lenient. So here in rabbinic law, so the rabbis were more lenient, meaning they compared it, because what are you going to compare it to? You're going to compare it to a corpse, you're going to compare it to a creepy crawler, right? That you come in contact with, right? So they compared it to both, because each one has a different size leniency. A creepy crawler, when you carry it, you don't become impure. Okay. A corpse you do. So they didn't compare it to a corpse, right? A corpse, on the other hand, has a minimum size. Like a creepy crawler, it can be a smaller size than a olive portion. And a corpse is olive size, so therefore we make it olive size, right? And also, like a nida, a woman who's menstruating, who has impurity, that she, in that the limb of it does not impart impurity, that a limb doesn't impart impurity, it has to be a whole. That she makes impure. Okay, so the same thing as over here, limbs of a deity. So in other words, a Buddha that has an arm, right? A Buddha that has an arm, and you cut off the arm, and now you touch the arm, you don't become impure. It has to be the whole. Okay, that's a leniency because it's a rabbinic law. When a false deity was separated into parts, even though it could be reassembled by ordinary person and all of its parts are present, it does not impart impurity. So you have all the parts and you can put it back together. Even then, it doesn't make impurity. Okay? So that's the thing itself, the Buddha itself. How about the accessories? You gave it a bow tie. You put a bow tie on the Buddha, right? Right? So all of the accessories of false deity are like the carcass of a crawling animal. They impart impurity to persons. So the bow tie of this deity, right? The Buddha, right? If you made it with one, right? So it's not the deity itself, it's an accessory, right? So then when you touch it, a person or vessels, they become impure. And earthenware, when it enters the inner space, as we explained, they do not impart impurity when carried. Same idea. The minimum measure that imparts impurity is an olive-sized portion, right? That of like a corpse. So it's similar to just the Buddha itself. Even if one cut off one of the olive-sized portion from an implement, it imparts impurity like the carcass of a crawling animal. But if you cut off part of the bow tie, right? Whatever other accessory, right? And it's an olive size, meaning it's 3 ounces, or it imparts impurity. In this context, the law applying to the accessories of false deity is more stringent than that applying to the false deity itself. Wow, that's pretty amazing, right? Now the Buddha itself, you have to have a complete Buddha. You can't have just the arm of the Buddha, right? But the bow tie, or if it had a scarf, you made a scarf for it. It was wintertime and the Buddha was getting cold, so you gave it a scarf, right? So that scarf, even a part of it, would make something impure. With regard to the shrine in which the false deity is worshipped, its stones, its beams, its earth, impart impurity, like in all the sides of them, is touch, and all of its accessories of false deity. So the shrine that you put it in, right? Whatever you gave it a dollhouse to, when you put it into its dollhouse, right? That shrine is like an accessory to the Buddha, and it has the same law. Okay, we're going to stop over here. Amazing, folks. Thank you. We'll see you later. And God willing, tonight we will have TRC.